Our first guest today is Dr. Pilar Johnson, a new physician at Novant Health, Oceanside Family Medicine in Southport. Well, welcome to the show today, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, and I understand that you just recently moved to the area. Is that correct?
I did.
Where did you practice before coming to Novant?
I did my residency in Maine, so I lived there for the last 3 years, and just moved back and started with Novant August 1st.
That's great. Well, I'm curious, what brought you to the area?
Well, I'm originally from North Carolina.
You are?
I am. I was born and raised in Durham, and then I went to college at UNCW and lived in Wilmington for several years before I went to medical school. So really, Wilmington is more home for me now. My parents live in Brunswick County. They live in Sunset Beach. So,
oh, that's awesome.
So this was really just coming back home. It was way too cold for me in the
I was going to
Northeast.
ask about that. How do you, Maine's pretty cold, isn't it?
It's beautiful, but very cold and long winters.
Yes.
So it was time to come home.
Yeah, that's great. The weather here is awesome. So you briefly touched on your education and your background.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that, where you went to school. And I understand you were in the military, or are in the military.
Yep. So I went to UNCW for college, and I stayed in Wilmington after college. I didn't want to leave the beach, and I was working for UPS at the time.
No way.
Yep. So I stayed there for 11 years, and when I was in my early 30s, I left that job and went back to school to do a few undergrad courses before applying to medical school. Ended up in medical school in the Caribbean, so I lived in St. Martin for a couple of years.
Oh, that's such a chore.
Tough life. And then I did the majority of my rotations for medical school in New York State, so I lived on Long Island for a couple of years, and then residency in Maine. So that's sort of the short end of it.
I'm curious, how do you go from UPS to medical school? What was your driving factor there?
Well, medicine has always been something I was interested in. I have a lot of friends in the field. I don't think, as a kid, I didn't know that I wanted to be a doctor. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but it was certainly something I always had an interest in. And when I was working, I did a master's in business as well, and I thought, well, if I can get through that doing something I really don't like, then I should be able to swing medical school. So really, it was more of a decision I made around my 30th birthday. I wasn't doing what I had intended on doing with my life, and so I made that jump. So
that's very interesting. We have another physician in the area who worked in the U.S. Postal Service.
I have met him. Yes.
I think that's very interesting. You two have some things in common.
Yes.
Well, now I touched briefly on the fact that you are in the military.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I'm in the Army Reserve Medical Corps, and I started doing that when I started residency. So I've been in for about 3 years, just as a reservist. So.
And so I don't quite understand that. You're in the reserve for a number of years?
Yes. Yes, I will be in for at least 8 years.
I see.
And maybe longer. We'll see. See how it goes. But
and hopefully you won't ever be deployed.
Well, hopefully not. But you
never know.
You never know what might happen.
I think that's a very interesting situation. I don't know much about the Army Reserves, but it's fascinating. I think the military in general and how that works. So. Well, that's great. Great information, and I want to know more about the practice in Southport. Now, I know that you've joined Dr. Moore's practice, which is Oceanside Family Medicine in Southport, correct?
Yes.
So where is the office actually located?
The office is on Howe Street. It's near the intersection where River Road comes into Howe Street, sort of across from Walgreens.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah, it's very convenient for most people. So, and now we have a third person that's on, Dr. Asbury, who's with us part-time. So it's a very interesting patient population. Currently, since I started, we're now seeing newborns through all ages and trying to focus more on women's health as well. When Dr. Moore first arrived in the office, he had a patient population that had been in that office prior to him getting there, so he's basically worked with that patient population, and now we're getting a lot more new patients in, and we're trying to open up the demographic to expand pretty much the whole age range, trying to see more children and infants as well as young adults. You know.
Does Dr. Asbury see children also?
She does. Yes, she sees babies up through. So we try and do full scope family medicine with the exception of OB care. We don't do that in our office.
But so if women's health, women's checkups yearly, you'll do those? You do pap smears and things like that?
Yes, we do pap smears. We do various forms of birth control, Nexplanon, Implanon, IUDs. So any number of those types of things we can do in the office. We can remove IUDs.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, so, that's great.
Sure.
Well, that's kind of a one-stop shop then. You can have your child seen and you can have your women's care done also. And that's something new in the Southport area, I believe, for a family practice.
Yes, I believe it is. That's my understanding, is that there are not a lot of, I think there maybe are some pediatricians in the area, but not family medicine people that are seeing children as well. So
that's really good for that area. That is a growing area, and so it does help to bring that service to the community. Are you currently accepting new patients then, all three of you?
Yes, because we have the 2 additional providers now. We have a lot of more time slots open up, and we're able to see more same-day patients as well, which has been helpful.
Oh, so you are able to see, if I called in the morning and I wasn't feeling well, I could be seen that day.
Absolutely.
Most likely.
Yes. Yes, it may not be by your primary care person.
Of course.
But there's 3 of us to choose from now, so it's opened that up quite a bit.
Wow, that's great. I really like that. I'm curious, though, do you have any special interests that you want to talk about today?
Not particularly. Like I said earlier, we're trying to really get in a lot of newborns and children and young adults and do a lot of women's health, which will be a nice sort of addition to what's already there. So that's really where we're putting some energy right this moment.
Well, I think that's real interesting. I mean, you may go from one room and see a 6-month-old, and you go to the next room and you have an 89-year-old person. And so it really changes up your day. And,
it's never boring.
No,
never
I imagine it isn't, because but it seems difficult for me, but for you, it just seems so natural.
Well, that's family medicine. That's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So
the whole family.
The whole family, exactly. And
Mom,
some
Dad,
people
Grandma,
are not,
Grandpa.
Right. And some people aren't used to that. You know, I've had a couple of patients ask me about that. You know, how are you able to take care of me as an aging menopausal female when you see babies and children? And I said, well, if you really want to mix it up, I can also deliver babies. I don't, but I can.
You can.
So yeah, it's an interesting thing, and that's part of the draw to family medicine for most of us, is that we get to do a little bit of everything. So.
Well, before we close, tell our viewers how they can schedule an appointment with you.
Okay, they can call 910-454-4032 and speak to anybody that answers the phone there, but it's usually Colleen or Heather, and they will get sent a new patient packet to fill out so we can get a little bit of demographic information from them and try and get their records first. But we are open.
Well, wonderful. Yep. Thank you so much for being here today. It's been a pleasure. And I hope you'll come back after you have been here a few months and tell us how it's going.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.